He was the face of Street Outlaws, the guy running the list in Oklahoma City, the guy who built a 2,500 horsepower weapon from a junkyard Pontiac, turned 10 street racers into a national phenomenon. Then he disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. His crew stayed, the cameras kept rolling, but Big Chief vanished. Most people assumed he quit racing, got too old, couldn't handle it anymore after the crash that nearly ended him in 2015. They were wrong. Big Chief never stopped racing, he just stopped performing. And what he's been doing since the cameras left tells you everything about who Big Chief actually is. Big Chief was born on December 9th, 1980 in Louisville, Kentucky. His real name is Justin Shearer. He was raised by his mother, who worked full-time while putting herself through nursing school. She taught him about work ethic and never once told him to stop chasing cars. At 9 years old, he was already sneaking out to watch illegal street races on Old Route 66. He'd ride his bike miles just to stand on the shoulder and watch strangers risk everything for bragging rights and pocket cash. He wasn't drawn to the speed. He was drawn to the culture, the unspoken rules, the hierarchy, the respect you earned, not bought. In 1992, when Big Chief was 12, his family moved to Oklahoma City. New town, same addiction. But Oklahoma City had something Louisville didn't. A serious street racing scene. Organized, competitive, dangerous. Big Chief stopped just watching. He started working. Gas stations, odd jobs, anything that paid. He wasn't dreaming about college. He was under cars learning compression ratios and camshaft timing. While other kids his age were getting their driver's licenses, he was already planning his first build. At 16, he bought a 1972 Pontiac Le Mans with money he'd saved himself. Every cent earned. He named it the Crow. It wasn't much. Stock engine, bones, stock everything. Probably couldn't beat a modern Honda Civic in a straight line, but it was his. And more importantly, it was a canvas. He didn't have money for performance parts, so he learned to do the work himself. Pulled the engine, tore it down, studied every component, read manuals, asked questions, made mistakes. The first rebuild took him 6 months and the engine barely ran when he was done. But he learned more in those 6 months than most people learn in a lifetime of driving. Over the next decade, that car would become something else entirely. Not just fast, legendary. The Crow wasn't just a car, it was Big Chief's identity. He rebuilt it, stripped it, reinforced it, twin turbocharged the engine, tuned it himself. By the early 2000s, the Crow was pushing around 2,500 horsepower. That's not a typo. 2,500 horsepower in a street car. To put that in perspective, a modern Ferrari produces around 700 horsepower. A Dodge Challenger Hellcat does 717. The Crow was producing over 4 times that in a car you could theoretically drive to the grocery store. But building something that powerful isn't just about bolting on turbos and hoping for the best. Big Chief spent years learning the engineering, not from books, but from failure. The first time he turbocharged the Crow, the engine lasted 3 passes before the pistons melted. Second attempt, he blew the transmission. Third time, the rear end grenaded on launch. Every failure taught him something about where the weak points were, what materials could handle the stress, how to tune fuel delivery so the engine didn't run lean and self-destruct. By the time the Crow was running reliably at 2,500 horsepower, he had replaced nearly every component with custom parts. Forged pistons, billet crankshaft, chromoly roll cage, racing fuel system, custom suspension geometry. The only things original were the body and the VIN number, and he did most of the work himself at Midwest Street Cars, the shop he eventually opened. Midwest Street Cars wasn't just a garage, it was Big Chief's workshop, his classroom, the place where he built engines for other racers, tuned cars, and fabricated parts. He didn't advertise much because he didn't need to. Word spread fast. If If you wanted a serious build in Oklahoma, you went to Big Chief. The shop became a hub where racers could work on cars, talk trash, and plan races. It's where the list races often started, where grudge matches got settled, where reputations were made or broken. Big Chief wasn't just building cars, he was building a community. But horsepower means nothing without control. Big Chief spent years learning throttle control, weight transfer, and suspension tuning. He studied the physics of traction and how to launch a 3,000-pound missile without shredding tires or flipping the car backward. He failed a lot, blew engines, crashed, rebuilt, learned. By 2002, Big Chief wasn't just racing, he was winning, consistently. He'd established himself in Oklahoma City's underground racing scene, and that scene had a structure. It was called The List. The list was simple: 10 spots for the 10 fastest street cars in Oklahoma City. If you wanted on the list, you had to challenge someone already ranked. Beat them, you took their spot. Lose, you went home. But the list was more than just rankings. It was a social contract, an honor system enforced by reputation. Here's how it worked. Number 10 was the gatekeeper. If you wanted on the list, you raced number 10. Win, and you took that spot while number 10 dropped off. From there, you could challenge anyone ranked above you by calling them out and setting a date to race. The catch was, you couldn't just challenge anyone. You had to work your way up. Number 8 couldn't challenge number 1. You moved up one spot at a time and earned it. If you lost, you stayed where you were or dropped if someone below you won. The list was constantly shifting, and every race night was high stakes. Big Chief didn't just get on the list, he ran it. He became the gatekeeper, the guy everyone had to go through. If you wanted to race in OKC, you dealt with Big Chief. That's where the nickname came from, not his size, but his authority. The list wasn't just about who had the fastest car. It was about who showed up, who raced fair, who paid when they lost, who didn't talk trash they couldn't back up. Big Chief enforced those rules, not with a rule book, but with respect and sometimes with humiliation on the asphalt. By 2002, the list was an institution in Oklahoma City. Racers from Texas, Kansas, and Louisiana would come to OKC just to challenge the list. Some won, most didn't. In 2003, Big Chief created a website for the list where he documented the rankings and posted race results. At first, it was just him and his buddies, with maybe 60 people total checking the site. They thought they were the fastest street racers in the world. They had no idea how small their world was about to get. A video production company called 1320 Video started filming street races across the country. They showed up in Oklahoma City, filmed the list, and posted the videos online. The response was massive. Then Discovery Channel came knocking. In 2013, Street Outlaws premiered with a simple premise: follow the Oklahoma City street racing scene, show the list, show the builds, show the drama, and make it real. Nobody thought it would last. Not the producers, not the racers, not Big Chief. They figured maybe one season, maybe two, if they were lucky. Big Chief has said publicly that he and the crew held nothing back during filming of season 1 because they assumed it was a one-shot deal. They raced hard, talked trash, and showed the ugly parts like the fights, the failures, and the crashes. Discovery renewed it for 10 more seasons. Big Chief became the face of the show as the guy running the list, the guy with the crow, the guy everyone wanted to beat. But fame doesn't come free, especially when you've built your reputation on something that's technically illegal in most jurisdictions. Street Outlaws walked a legal tightrope from day one. The show claimed the races were sanctioned and filmed on closed roads with permissions, controlled and relatively safe, but the lines blurred fast. Some cities banned the show outright. Tulsa, Oklahoma refused to let them film. The National Hot Rod Association threatened to revoke the racing licenses of anyone who appeared on the show, arguing that Street Outlaws glorified illegal activity and made street racing look cool to kids who had no business trying it. Big Chief's response was blunt. He told Drag Illustrated in 2015 that they were glorifying heads-up racing on a budget. Instead of putting on the smallest tires they could find and gluing them to the track, they were finding the worst road they could find and putting the biggest tire on. He acknowledged that there were guys out there doing it the legal way, the professional way, and here were these rednecks from Oklahoma street racing, but they knew what they were doing was dangerous and chose to do it anyway. That was the thing about Big Chief. He never pretended to be something he wasn't. He didn't apologize and he didn't justify, he just raced. Until November 14th, 2015. It was supposed to be another list race. Big Chief was racing Brian Chucky Davis when both cars lined up and the lights dropped. They launched. Somewhere around 100 miles per hour, Davis's car got loose and crossed the center line, clipping the rear quarter panel of the Crow. Physics took over. The Crow spun, flipped, and landed in a ditch. The entire driver's side was obliterated, the front end was gone, and the roll cage was the only thing holding the car together. Big Chief posted from the hospital later that night about his pulmonary contusions, crushed L2 and L3 vertebrae in his back, and broken collarbone. He said he was pretty beat up but thankful to be alive and that the Crow had sacrificed its life to save his first car, his first love, his first addiction. The Crow was totaled. Big Chief was told by doctors he might not race again because back injuries like that don't heal the same and vertebrae don't grow back. The pain was constant. He couldn't sleep lying down, couldn't lift anything, couldn't twist his torso without agony. Most people would have quit, sold the shop, and found something safer. But Big Chief's wife brought his laptop to the hospital so he could read the data logs from the crash. She knew that even from a hospital bed with broken bones and punctured lungs, Big Chief was already planning his next build. 3 months later, Big Chief unveiled a new car at the 2015 PRI show. It was a carbon fiber Pro Mod Firebird that was lighter, faster, and safer. He named it the Crow Mod.
Cover off. You guys are going to hate on the new car. I'm going to answer any questions that you may have, and then anybody who don't like it can get in line, and we're going to race all the way back to Oklahoma City with this dude. Because that's what it's here for. That's what I built it for me to race it and beat everybody on the planet. Woo! Chief.
The roll cage was reinforced and designed by Terry Murphy Race Cars, one of the best chassis builders in the country. The body was full carbon fiber and stripped of every unnecessary pound with a goal of 2,300 pounds race ready, which was 1,000 pounds lighter than the Crow, and the engine was the same twin-turbo Pontiac that survived the Crow's crash. Big Chief pulled it from the wreckage and inspected every component. The block was fine and the internals were fine, so he rebuilt it and tuned it. That engine had saved his life once and he wasn't letting it go. The Crow Mod wasn't just a replacement, it was proof that a crash couldn't stop him, that pain was temporary, and he was back on the streets within 6 months. While Big Chief was rebuilding cars, his personal life was falling apart. He'd been married to Alicia Shearer since 2006. They met when he was 18 and working at a gas station. She came in to fill up and he was nervous, knowing he was in trouble the second he saw her. He described it years later. She was a respiratory therapist who was smart and grounded. She wasn't part of the racing scene, but she understood it and supported it. They dated for 7 years before getting married and had 2 sons together, Corbin and Kavil. Alicia supported the racing by showing up to race nights and raising their kids, while Big Chief chased horsepower and television fame. She was there when the Crow crashed, there when Big Chief was in the hospital, and there through the rebuilds, the failures, and the late nights at Midwest Street Cars. From the outside, it looked solid. 10 years of marriage, 2 kids, a business, a show. The American dream with nitrous. Then, in 2017, rumors started when Big Chief was seen with Jackie Brosh, another street racer and member of Car Chicks, a motorsports organization for women. She grew up around drag racing because her father built a 1985 Chevy Camaro the year she was born, and she'd been in garages ever since. Fans started accusing Big Chief of cheating on Alicia, and the comments got vicious from people who'd never met him or her, but decided they knew what happened. Big Chief addressed it on the Chief and Sean Show podcast, saying it was no secret that he and Alicia had been having trouble, and it was further than just having trouble because they were getting a divorce. He said many people had criticized him for something he didn't do, but once they realized the truth, he was sure they'd be his fans, just like everyone else. He denied cheating. Alicia never confirmed or denied anything publicly. She filed for divorce in November 2017, got custody of the boys, moved to Mustang, Oklahoma, deleted most of her online presence, and stopped appearing anywhere near the racing scene. Big Chief moved on with Jackie, and they've been together ever since. Still not married, still racing together, still posting builds on their channel Midwest Street Cars. But the divorce changed something in Big Chief. He became more private and more guarded, less willing to let cameras into his personal life. The show wanted drama and storylines and to film everything. He wanted to race, just race. That tension with production would eventually boil over. In 2018, Discovery launched Street Outlaws, No Prep Kings, a spin-off where street racers competed on unprepared drag strips across the country for prize money, big money in the tens of thousands per event. Big Chief competed, but not regularly. He'd show up for some events and skip others. His appearances became sporadic, and fans noticed. Then, in Season 4 of No Prep Kings, Big Chief was completely absent. Season 5 was the same. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. Team 405, his crew from Oklahoma City, was still there with Murder Nova, Daddy Dave, and Ryan Martin. Everyone except Big Chief. In March 2022, Big Chief finally addressed it in a video, saying he didn't leave because he wanted to, but because of production rules that didn't make sense for someone who'd been doing this since before there were cameras.
At the end of the day, there are lots of issues that have changed the way I feel about Street Outlaws, and I have fought tooth and nail since the beginning for real street spots, real street rules, real street racers. You know, that's what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to keep this show and all the shows as street as possible. Yes, they got to film it. Yes, we got to give them stuff. Yes, it's a compromise. But there's always been a compromise. It's been, I'll do this and I'll deal with this if you guys let us do this, you know what I mean? And
he didn't elaborate, but the message was clear. Big Chief wanted to race, and Discovery wanted content. Those two things weren't always compatible. So Big Chief walked, not from racing, but from the show that made him famous. Since leaving Street Outlaws, Big Chief has focused on Midwest Street Cars, his performance shop in Oklahoma City. He builds engines, tunes cars, and races when he wants to on his terms. He still has the list and still races on the streets of OKC when conditions are right. He didn't need Discovery to stay relevant. Most racers who get a taste of television can't let it go. They need the cameras, the validation, the sponsorships. They'll compromise their racing, their cars, their principles, anything to stay on screen. Big Chief didn't do that. When Discovery's rules conflicted with how he wanted to race, he left and walked away from guaranteed money, from exposure, from the biggest platform street racing has ever had. If you enjoyed this video and want to see another just like it, be sure to subscribe to our channel now. With that, thanks for watching and be sure to tune in next time.